Hey guys, it's your pal Joey.T from the Cartoon.P giving you an early review of Hotel Transylvania 3. And I know what you're thinking, I'm posting this video 2 weeks before the release date. How did that happen? Well, I'm one of the few people that's lucky enough to be paying $100 a year for Amazon Prime. They give you a little bit of a perk, and that perk is seeing a movie earlier before it's released, and that movie being Hotel Transylvania 3. Now granted, I'm a big fan of these movies, the second movie not so much, so I jumped to this opportunity. But it really had me thinking, was Sony Pictures Animation confident enough to release this movie early for Amazon Prime users? Well, let's find out. So I'm not going to go into spoilers, but I want to mention something that I think is interesting. When the movie opens up, there's no Columbia Pictures logo, which is weird because it showed up in every other Sony Pictures animated film that's come out. So for me, I just think that's interesting. Is it something with Sony Pictures and Columbia Pictures? I mean, they're both the same thing at this point, but I don't know. I guess at some point they figured they didn't even need it anymore. What I like about this movie is that unlike the second film, it goes back to what the first film did and starts off with a flashback where we see Dracula being hunted by Van Helsing, which is funny considering that in the Dracula novel, Van Helsing's a protagonist, and in here, he's sort of an antagonist. Cut to years later, and we're back where the second movie left off, and even a short that came out before Hotel Transylvania 3, back when Hotel Transylvania 2 was out, where Dennis gets a big puppy. And when I say puppy, I'm talking Clifford the Big Red Dog size. So I think it's interesting that they were able to incorporate that short into the storyline of Hotel Transylvania, since in most cases, shorts that have some continuity to what's going on in the films try not to add it to the continuity of those stories. So I think it's actually interesting that they decided to incorporate that into the story. Do I think it's a welcome addition? I'll get into that in a little bit. Long story short, Dracula's alone. Mavis thinks he's overworked, but the truth is, he hasn't found anybody to fall in love since his wife died. I think it's interesting because the movie shows a short product plug for another Sony phone, which boggles my mind because of all things Sony could be plugging, it's these phones that I swear nobody ever uses. So you got a short sequence which feels like a blatant product plug, and to me, that's what it is. I mean, granted, it's not the worst scene ever, but it still feels like a commercial within the movie. Which is odd because before the movie started, you get a commercial for Alexa because this is an Amazon Prime exclusive. So it's almost weird where you get both those scenes. One's in the movie and one's not in the movie. You could take it out and it doesn't even feel like it's even part of the movie. Because Mavis feels that Dracula's overworked, she decides to give him a trip. And by trip, she takes him on a cruise. And this is where the main focus of the story is, them being on this cruise ship. Which is funny considering that Dracula owns a hotel, so to him, that's the competition. But it ain't all bad because once he gets on the ship, he discovers the captain is super hot. And listen, I ain't spoiling anything because it's been revealed in the trailers, but basically this captain is the relative to Van Helsing that we've seen earlier into the film. Not going to go into any more as far as how that's going to tie up, but I will say this. It reminds me of another movie that came out years ago with a similar theme, and I'm not going to say which film it is. But when I post a spoiler video a couple weeks later at the time of the release of this movie, I'll explain what movie that is. And really, that's the gist of the story. So I want to start off with the negatives. First off, there are a lot of scenes where it feels like filler. I mean, granted, there's some good slapstick in the movie, and that's what the Hotel Transylvania movies are known for. You gotta ask yourself, is it worth seeing funny gags for the sake of funny gags? I'll get into a little bit later as to which ones work and which ones don't. A couple of the ones that don't work are the ones that feel like they're harping on a joke for a really, really long time. It's like, we get it, we know it's funny, let's move on. No, they keep beating it on the head like a dead horse, and it gets a little repetitive. Another thing that bothered me about this film, and it was the thing that bothered me about Hotel Transylvania 2, is Dennis. The addition of Dennis as a character to me doesn't really add to the story. Granted, there really isn't that much story to the Hotel Transylvania movies, but the cool thing about Hotel Transylvania is the distinctions between the monsters world and the humans world. The perception of the monsters to the perception of the humans. That's where you get the real comedy. And for me, Dennis just doesn't really add to that. He just feels like an addition for the sake of having extra characters, and they just didn't know what else they could do. Now, with all that said and done, those are my negatives. Let's go on to the positive. Now, let me take a quick gander as to what it is about this movie that people love. Is it A, the animation, B, no, let's just go with A, it's the animation. And that's what you're going to get out of this film. Genndy Tartakovsky animation wizard, really puts in his soul into anything he does. I went ahead and I talked to somebody over the weekend, and he even told me, like, you know, Genndy Tartakovsky rarely ever has a project that doesn't look good. And at the very least, if it isn't great, it's still substantial. And that's how I feel about the Hotel Transylvania movies, is that despite the fact that even he in interviews have stated that they're silly monster movies, you know, adding on to the Monster Mash, the Mad Monster Party back in the 60s, is that that's what these movies represent. They're silly, cartoony movies, but it's not like he's cheaping out. He's still offering a good product to show for a very silly concept. And that's really what you get. I love how in the time of the first film to now, Dracula has, I want to say, like a whole book of different expressions on his face, and each one is unique and off-model, but pertains to him. It reminds me of Darla Dimple from Cats Don't Dance. I mentioned on my Twitter once how Darla Dimple's expressions go from all different ranges. And it's really the same thing with Dracula, especially when it comes to computer animation, which is more rigid than hand-drawn animation. But the fact that Sony Pictures hits that right blend really shows something really cool. And given that this is a Genndy Tartakovsky project, I'm just going to get this out of the way. But Captain Erica? I'm just going to put it to you this way. You got Mrs. Incredible coming out a couple weeks beforehand, and everybody's going on saying how awesome and, let's be honest, kind of sexy she looks. Captain Erica, that's some good competition. All I gotta say is, it's the year of extra thick! And it's coincidental because that meme did come from a show created by Genndy Tartakovsky, so there you go. But the thing I liked about Hotel Transylvania 3 more than I liked about Hotel Transylvania 2, and to me actually feels like a superior sequel to Hotel Transylvania, the first one, is that the story is more engaging. Granted, I talked about elements in the story like Dennis that kind of hold it back, but that's really about the only thing. What I like about the Hotel Transylvania movie, the first one, is how it incorporates a story about the monsters and the humans colliding. They go back to that. They even incorporate how the humans perceive the monsters as portrayed by the Captain Erica character, which again, I'm not going to go into, but does add something that made the first movie good. And what you loved about the first movie, as I mentioned with the animation, is the dancing. I know that's like a minor thing to be commenting on, but I think it's so great when you got a good old-fashioned monster mash, something that was missing from the second film, incorporated in this film. I'm not going to say which scene it is, but it utilizes great music, it utilizes great visuals, and great action. What I love about Genndy Tartakovsky is that not only is he great, you know, comedic animation director, but he's also great with action and utilizing silence and utilizing good framing and composition, and it really shows with some scenes in this film. So that's really all I got to say about Hotel Transylvania 3. Good story, good animation, better than the second film. Am I going to say it's as good as the first Hotel Transylvania? Time's going to tell. Like I said, I got an early screening of this film. Maybe I'll go see this movie again before I do my spoiler video, and we'll find out. But comment below and let me know what you think. Did you see Hotel Transylvania 3 early? Are you an Amazon Prime owner? Let me know what you think. Let me know anything in the comment section. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. It's your pal Joey T. Take care.